Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar for Pano 2 VR. Today's webinar is going to be all about embedding video. So I'm Martin from support, and I'll be joined today by...
Hi, I'm Karen, and I'm here in the background helping out with the Q&A. If you have a question, please use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. This makes it much easier for us to go through the questions. Yeah, and try to keep your questions on topic, and we'll try to get to all of your questions. So enjoy the webinar, and I'll see you on the flip side.
Thank you, Karen. Right, okay, so what we're doing then, it's embedded video. This is what we're talking about. This is basically a theta shot. Thomas took this, and with his mobile phone he shot some video, and what we've done is embedded the little video clip into the theta panorama. The flip side to this is you don't have massive bandwidth issues with 360 video, and you get some movement going on. Okay, so this is what we're going to build, and before we actually start diving into this, it's taking the images, which is something we wanted to talk about quickly. Now, you know, from a software point of view, we are working with the media presented, which you've already captured, but it's the tips on capturing. Basically, some people use the fisheye lens on their camera to catch the video. If you're going to do that, make sure that you capture it from the center, so you have as less distortion as possible. The other thought process is, well, you know, I'm going to use a fisheye lens because I've taken the image on that, but don't forget we're extracting a patch, so the patch itself will be a rectilinear type projection, so therefore you want a very similar projection when you're overlaying the video. So just a few things to be mindful. The other thing is as well is you're only capturing a small part. If we zoom into this, you will see buses and all sorts and traffic going on behind the waterfall. So, and you can just about see in this corner, I don't know if you can, there's people walking in and out, but of course because we're only using a small portion of the video, they're sort of disappearing in and out of view. So if you've got someone behind a desk, be mindful of this, ask them not to move around too much. And the other thing that I wanted to touch base on is colours. The reason why we've chosen this video is because this is probably one of the worst colours to try and blend in, this blue, this very light coloured blue. With the greens and the darker colours, it's very easy, and the blending process is much simpler. But when you've got all these horrible colours, these light blues, it's very, very difficult, and that's part of this process today, to show you how to get round this by adding an image mask. Okay, so that's enough about me talking about it. So let's actually jump in. So I'm just going to close this window. I can get rid of both of these, move to bin, and here's my project. Okay, so here's my project folder. Basically, I've got a panorama and the video that Thomas shot. So what I'm going to do is grab the panorama, drop it down, and drag it onto Pano 2 VR. There we go, and that should then open. There it is. So I'm going to whiz that around and right button click and set my default view. All right, so set default view, and there it is. So there's my default view of the area that I want to extract. And what I'm going to do then is do that. I'm going to switch the viewer to patch mode. Okay, I'm going to double click, add my patch. Now, obviously you're talking about a video. This patch will become a video, so size is important. If you make it too big, then you're going to have a large video that you're going to have to deal with. In the same medium, if you make it too small, then you won't have enough overlap to try and blend it in. So it is a fine balancing act. We can actually change the aspect ratio of the patch here. So in this case, where I want the width, it's actually it's wider than the height, so I can use the aspect ratio. So I'm just going to cover that area here, and that's done. Now, one thing I've just noticed, which is I shouldn't have done, is that I had Photoshop already open. So what I'm going to do is just close this down and not save it. My apologies for that. Now, the reason for me doing that is that when you extract a patch, Pano 2VR has a little checkbox in its settings. Let's just have a little look. So let's go to, what did I do? Pano 2VR, where are you? Here, right. So if I go to the Pano 2VR preferences and have a look at advanced settings, we've actually got, where is it? Patch open external editor after extraction. Now I actually extract Photoshop files. So basically for me, as soon as I extract a patch, it will automatically open Photoshop. And I wanted you to see that, hence why I wanted to close it beforehand. Okay, but obviously it will obviously open whatever type of patch you extract. You could be extracting PNGs and you might have a different photo editor to open those. Now this brings me on to the photo editor. Now I'm using Photoshop, and the reason for this is because you need a photo editor that can handle video. You need a photo editor that can handle layers. So for me, that's Photoshop. You may have a different photo editor. You can use other photo editors as long as they can obviously do those tasks. Now, for those guys that are using Rico Thetas, you've probably already got Lightroom. I've actually signed up to the Photoshop photography scheme, so that's just under a tenner a month, and I get Lightroom and Photoshop. And with those two pieces of software, obviously I can, you know, stitch my theta images and do things like this as well because I've got Photoshop. But anyway, that's the setting for when we click extract. So I've created my patch, I've added the I've selected the area for the patch, and now I'm going to click extract, and when it extracts, it opens, boom, in Photoshop. Now this is the latest edition, and so to make sure that everything was okay, I went round and set all my defaults. So this is Photoshop 2020, you know, Creative Cloud, and it's all set back to defaults, apart from one, which is the timeline. Here we go. So that one's there. So I'm going to get rid of that, so that gives us more screen space to play with. Okay, right. So this is it. This is what it looks like. It may or may not have all of your tools down the one side. I prefer just to open it up. And this is what we've got. This is Photoshop. This is our patch in there. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to just move that to one side. I'm going to squidge Pano 2VR down behind it. And I'm just going to drag and drop the video into Photoshop. There we go. That's done. So what we've now got is the background layer and the video layer on top. Okay. So let's just close that, and I'm going to, I want to try and line up the video to the patch as best as I can. So I'm with the patch selected. What I need to do, because when I dragged it in, it was straight into the transform tool. So if I go, I'm on the Mac, so if I go Command T, that puts me on the transform. If you're on the PC, that would have been Control T. And with the transform tool open, I can just slightly stretch that out. And because I want to try and line this up, what I'm going to do is make sure that that video layer is selected. And I'm going to move the opacity down. So around about 50–40%. So now when I drag it around, you can see the patch image underneath it. There we go. Now, obviously, what I want to try and do is get it as nice as I can. Or as close as I can to it. So I'm going to line up this little bit of area, and we can see we've got the corner edge of this building I'm working on there. Okay, now obviously don't forget the video was shot with a mobile phone. Two things there. One, it's a flat lens. The other thing is the quality of the resolution of the video is going to be much higher than that of the panorama. As I say, it was taken on theta. So we've got a couple of little issues we've got to deal with there, but that's okay. Right, so as I say, we're going to try and best as we can line these two up. All right, so that's that. What we're going to do now is select the warp tool, because as you can see, no matter what I do, I'm never actually going to line up this part of the building with this edge of the building here, because of just the pure distortion with the lenses. So Photoshop's got this warp tool. So if we click this, you get this dotted almost like grid arrangement. It used to show a grid, doesn't anymore. You have to select it. So under grid, under default select, I'm going to select 4x4. And the actual more grid spaces you get, the more distortions you can do. What's going to happen is if I grab one of these grid squares, I can distort the image like so. All right. So here on this, I've got the corner of this building. I can move that around and distort that. Now, of course, I'm distorting per block all these squares. So the more squares you have, the more accurately you could distort it, or the smaller increments or areas. So I can bring that down. You've got that there. You can see this pole's not quite right there. I can straighten that up at the top, bring that in at the bottom. There we go. So we can just have a little bit of a tweak. So I'm just going to zoom that in, and also going to see what we've got here. Yeah, that could probably come out a lot more. There's a lot more that we could do here, but obviously for speed, what I don't want to do is just waste a lot of time. So I'm just going to, tweak this as much as I can just to get it roughly where it should be. Now, that's the key point. I only need to roughly get it to where it should be because I'm going to add a mask. So I'm only going to see this area. So all these buildings and all that, I'm just using these as references to actually get the video as close as I can to the patch image. So like, if you like, I'm talking about the distortion of this. So I'm trying to get the, trying to de-distort the video as much as I can to the patch image. Okay, so with that all done, all right, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to zoom out a tad, and I'm going to press enter and enter that in, and then I'm going to return the opacity back. Now you can see that there is still a bit of distortion there, but it's not huge. All right, it's not huge. I'm sort of okay with that. So what I'm going to do now is go to the window menu item and select timeline, and I've got a couple of choices here. I can create frames from animation or create a video timeline. I'm going to create a video timeline and press click and add one, and there it is. If I press the play button, you'll see that the video is playing in the patch, right? Okay, so that's quite good, right? And it's good that it's playing is what I mean. It's not good that it can happen. It's just good it's playing. Anyway, I'm going to stop there and sort of bring in Karen, see if we've got any questions, because I know that little first bit was a bit quick. If you guys want me to slow down or do anything, but as I say, throw it open. Karen, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have one question from Arnold, and he's wondering if this all works, also with Adobe Premiere. And yes, it does. And it works with any kind of editor that accepts images and video. So
and it works with layers. It has to work with layers.
And works with layers. So we've got this working with Final Cut and Motion, for instance. Yeah, you can do this in Premiere. You just have, and of course, it also helps if whatever editor you're working with has transform and warp tools. This is really useful, I think. For that. Yeah, but the basic workflow should be the same. So if you're not using Photoshop or Lightroom, it should also work. And I can say that because I am not an Adobe user at all. So just to let you know, it works on that side too. So and Dylan has a question.
I'm just going to stay quiet and just let you answer them all. This is great.
No.
Go for it.
I'm sorry. Did you want to add to that?
No, not at all. I'm if everyone's happy, I'm chuffed.
So yeah, Dylan is funny. He says, "Sorry, I blinked and missed. You dragged import the video. What file format was it?"
Well, the video was just a .mov file that came from the mobile phone. It could be an MPEG 4. I'm not sure all of the different file types that Photoshop can accept, but generally the basic ones, or the usual suspects like MPEG-4 videos and things like that, for Photoshop will accept. So you just basically drag and drop it onto the patch image, and as soon as you do that, you create a new layer, and there it is.
And you didn't do anything to this video. This is raw right out of the phone. There was no...
Absolutely. This is all I've done is just positioned it on top of the background image, which was the patch we extracted from Pano 2 VR.
Okay. And that reminds me, Martin posted files for this if you wanted to follow along. I'll post a link to download the panorama and the movie file, right?
Absolutely. It's the two files that I'm working with today. You can download them obviously in your own time. Once the video's uploaded, as we do every, say a couple of days after we upload the video to the webinar, you can follow it through and obviously practice and get good at it.
Yeah. So I'm going to put them right into the chat window for now, just in case we forget. And I think that's it. I've lost my Q&A tab. Okay, yeah, that's all. So I'll see you later.
All right, I'll carry on. Right. Okay, so just to recap then, Pano 2 VR, extract patch. As soon as you extract it, automatically opens up Photoshop. Because I'm extracting a PSD file, I could have extracted a PNG, but I've extracted a PSD, opens up Photoshop, drag and drop the video on and line up the video using the transform and warp tools. So that's as far as we've got. Okay, so that's the background layer is the patch and the fountain is the video. Okay, now what I want to do is create a looped video. Now this is a single video that's like 16 seconds long, and I don't want that sort of length. I want it to be short and snappy and just looping. It's a fountain. It doesn't have to do anything funky. It just needs to show waters moving. Okay, so what I'm going to do is scrub around. I'm going to scrub up and down. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because, and I've got a little chuckle to my voice, is because Thomas shot this on his phone and he's obviously handheld this thing. So if I was to scrub the timeline up and down, you'll actually see the video moves up and down slightly. Obviously arm gets tired, drops, so you've got a little bit of movement on that video. So it's not just blending this in, we've got this movement to deal with as well, which makes this a great project. Now what I did was I spent a bit of time scrubbing backwards and forwards to try and get a section of the video that had less movement up and down, and I sort of got it to around about 7 seconds. Then what I did was select the video and I cropped it, just cut it there, delete that, move it across, put it in the timeline, here we go, scrub back. Now as I say, what I want to do is make a very, very short looped video. So I'm going to scrub this forward, probably going to go to about 5 seconds, that's going to be plenty, and cut that as well. I can get rid of the back, done. All right, so that's my video. Now when I press play, interestingly, with Photoshop, it plays. You can see this blue line. This is the frames it's rendering. When it first goes through, it's rendering these frames. When it gets to the end, and you play again, theoretically, because those frames are rendered, it should play quicker. So it's got to the end, you play again, and now that's running at normal speed. Okay, cool. All right. Now, obviously when it gets to the end it stops. With Photoshop there's this little options key here and you can select loop. If I select that now and click play, you'll see it just loops around. So but what you're going to see is the loop between the back and the front. You can see we've got this little jerky motion, and it's we can tidy this up. So how am I going to do that? Okay, well I want to make a looped video, so I want the end and the front to be perfect. So the way we do that is I'm going to count 2 seconds in from the back, all right, roughly, and cut that. And then what I'm going to do is move the back bit to the front and the front bit to the back. So that should give me now, so when we get to the end and it restarts and it loops, that should be perfect. You don't see it. Brilliant. Of course, in the center here, we've got this little section that we are now going to see that jump there as we do. Right. Now to get around that, all I'm going to do is add a transition. So I'm going to select transitions, I'm going to use crossfade, and I'm going to drag that in between the two, and we have a transition. Here we go. So now when we play this, what we're going to get, hopefully, is a really, really nice looped video. So we go. So that's the end and the. But when we get to this transitional effect, the only thing you're going to see is these people. Obviously, they're going to fade out, and then it's going to come back in again. And that's pretty good. I like that. That's quite a good transition. So so this is me making the loop video. I've got it down to 5 seconds. I've put a 1 second transition in there, so that gets it down to 4 seconds, and we've got this nice looping effect of the waterfall. Right, so that's exactly what I want, but there's a big but to this, and that is with video, it uses a different color space to that of images. So as an example, most browsers, well, I think all browsers, deal with images being sRGB, but for video there's a different color space. So what we're going to try and do is blend in the video as much as we can. All right, so how we're going to do that is, I've got this, when we chop this up, we've now got this video group. All right, this is now formed in 2 layers. I'm going to reduce that, so I've only just got one video group. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is add a mask. So if I click this, this is my image mask, and I'm going to select, I've got the brush tool selected, and what I'm going to do is set feathering. I want as much feathering as I can, size around about 50, and what I'm going to do now is just basically draw around the video, and you can see what we're doing is exposing the patch image underneath it. Now, you'd obviously be a lot better and more accurate than me at doing this, but I've just drawn around it. Now you can see the color difference. See this pinky effect? This is coming from the theta's image. This is from the patch. Now to speed this up, this is another little trick in a little Photoshop trick. If you hold down the Option or the Alt key and click the patch, you get this silhouette type effect. If you then select the bucket tool, you can bucket tool and get rid of most of it. Then what I'm going to do now is select the brush tool. I'm going to get rid of the soft edge, so I'm going to go really hard and might even just make the brush a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to paint around the edge, making sure that I'm not touching the feathered edge, because I do want to feather the video in. So let's just go around like that. Right, that looks pretty good. I can now hold down the Option or the Alt key, so Option on the Mac, Alt on the PC, same button. Click that, and you can now see the difference between the image, the patch image, and the video. So this is basically the color difference between the 2 devices anyway. All right, so this is what we're dealing with, and what we want to do is try and blend these together. Okay, so how do we do that? Right, well, again, in Photoshop, we've got we can use what we call adjustment layers. So I'm going to click this, I'm going to add an adjustment layer, and the adjustment layer I like to start with is exposure. Now the main reason for this is that when you're looking at differences between video and photo, when you look at the colors, basically the main change is in the gamma. So your gamma correction is probably the first one you want to attack to try and balance this out. Now, if I just open this up as I've done, I've had an exposure level. If I try and change anything here, we're going to be doing the whole patch. All right, don't want to do that. So let's put that back. What we do is we have this little button here, and when clicked, this will then lock this adjustment layer to the layer directly below it, which is just the video here. So you see it moved, and we're now at the video. So now when I do an adjustment slide, I'm only affecting the video. So I can slide this around, and as you can see, it improves it immensely just to start with. All right. Okay, and I'm going to do a little bit of an offset, nothing too major. There we go. It's probably a little bit darker there, which allows me to bring that in a little bit more. Okay, so that's not too bad. Okay, still got a bit of blue around the edges. I'm gonna use another adjustment layer to try and combat this. What I'm going to use next is a photo filter. And the reason why I'm adding a photo filter, because I'm going to be using a warming filter, because if we just again lock this to the lower the layer, so the video layer, you'll see that the actual patch is actually, there's a bit pinky. It's like a red hue or a pink hue actually in the patch image, where the video, the higher resolution video from the iPhone, is more true life, so it doesn't have that red. So what I'm doing here is adding some warmth. Now it's obviously too much to start with, but we're going to drop that down a little bit. I'm trying to make the water a similar warm colour to the background area, which I'm sort of happy with about there. Alright, so that brings that in, and I'm going to use one more adjustment layer. So we're going to click on this, and that's going to be just colour balance. Alright, so there we go. I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to lock that so it only affects the video layer. And with this, with this particular image, really it's the cyan, the yellow. Because we've already adjusted the like the red hue, I don't need to touch the magenta at all. So I'm just going to adjust the yellow here. We can see that a little bit there, and a little bit more on the cyan. Can bring that in, and I'm about there. Okay, probably doesn't look too different from you guys looking at it on the monitor, but for me looking at this, and hopefully on the video playback, because it'll be a much higher resolution, the webinar videos that we post up later, you'll see the difference. There is still a bit of a color difference here, I can see, but this is, I'm just doing this for speed. I mean, if I do that actually gets rid of that quite a lot actually. But anyway, those are the three adjustment layers, or can't speak, sorry, the three adjustment layers that I use to try and balance it up. I've done this in the past several times, and you can't even tell. I do it, one off, and it looks horrible. It's just something you've just got to sit down and play with. But yeah, this is the adjustments. There we go. So I'm just going to leave that like that. I could sit here and play. Anyway, so with that all done, if I now press the play button for the video, you can see that we've got the video in its mask against the background of the patch. All right, so that's it working and playing. Right, so this is the video that we've now created, or not so much created, but this is what we are going to export. So with that, I'm going to go to File, Export, and Render Video. Now this does take a second or two to do, but I'm actually going to change the file name here to _ video, and I'm going to render this. Now this is real-time rendering. It's only a 3-second video. I know it looks like it's going to be slow, but generally speaking it gets to about just under halfway and it's done, because it's probably thinking, oh, I've got a lot of video to deal with, I really have, and all of a sudden no, I haven't, and it's done. So it's really good. So while it's doing that, actually I'll throw this back to Karen. Do we have any other little questions coming in, Karen?
We do.
Awesome.
Oh, that was quick. The render already.
Yeah, as I said, it doesn't. It sort of goes almost to halfway, and it's done. It's finished. So, but it's just a good time for breaking in and seeing if we've got any questions.
Okay. You probably answer this later on, but it's a good question from Arnold. He says the finished output of a panorama. Which video formats are supported there? Only a format like MPEG-4, or others like WebM and so on?
The thing is, because we are using the browser's native video support, you really want to choose a video format that all browsers use. So as an example, WebM, not all browsers can show WebM. So even though you might get it to work in, say, Chrome or something like that, in Firefox it may not work, or definitely on a mobile phone it may not work. So you really want to look at, what video format is supported by all browsers, and at the moment that's MPEG-4. So I tend to work with that, because go with what you know. But there's nothing stopping you experimenting and seeing what's what. But yeah, MPEG-4 is quite a good one.
It's safe. Yeah, safe. A safe bet.
It's safe. Web safe, as they say. Yeah.
Arnold has another question. He has um, he's got a few questions. So, uh, he says, I have a panorama with a table. I have two hotspots that I can move to. One is in front of the table and one behind it. I would now like to add a person behind this table. Is that possible because the person is partly covered by the table and other objects?
Well, how this is working is that you obviously take the panorama, and then what you would do is sit the person behind the table and then film them talking behind the table, and then you'll bring this in as a video as we're doing. I suspect what you're asking is if you have somebody sitting somewhere else in a green screen room or something like that, and you just want to plonk them behind a table within the panorama. We don't do that, and that's not obviously what we're doing here at the moment. You can, we obviously mentioned about video types. WebM at the moment does support. So this is, right, I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to get criticised for saying this, but WebM supports alpha, and you can actually have a video with a transparent background and plonk it in plonk it in the side of a panorama, or pin it to or pin it to, a pinned video to a panel as well, and it will work. But where you're limited then is what browsers can actually play that. With MPEG 4, there's no sort of alpha channel as such that we can mess with straight away. It needs a little bit more JavaScript and magic to make that work. So what I would do is, in your case, is just have that person sit behind the desk, talk and video them talking behind that desk. Then that way you can just blend it in like we've just done, and it's a lot simpler.
Right. And I think so. The second part of his question, which I probably should have included, but I think you also answered it. He asks, what happens when I move to the hotspot behind the table? How does this affect the video? And do I need two green screen shots of the person from the front and rear?
Well,
so
I think we've sort of nullified having the green screen idea.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sort of trying to sort of figure out what you're trying to do. I'm assuming that you've got a person sitting in front of you on a desk with a hotspot behind him, and when you click the hotspot, you move past that person to another person behind another desk, and that person talking. That's just two different panoramas. So you would just, I don't know, you just have a hotspot just below the table or on the table itself, and not anywhere near the video. So when you click it, you then open up the next panorama with the next guy further on. I mean, that's if I've understood that question correctly, but...
Yeah, I think so. I think the question's a little bit out of scope for this webinar.
Absolutely.
So Arnold, if you still have some more questions about this particular workflow, then you can just write us an email, and Martin will get back to you on that at support@ggnome.com, and we'll get you straightened. But I think the one thing to know is when you want to incorporate embedded video, it's good to plan this before you shoot. Just like what Martin has said, because you can take your panorama and then you can take your video in the same location, the same spot, same, everything. And it'll be a little bit easier. But
we got, absolutely.
So that's it for the questions for now. And
all right, cool. Well, let's crack on then. Right. So that's basically all my Photoshop work. So I've added my layers. I've tried to blend it in as much as I can. So the video's blended into the patch image. So I'm now going to minimize that, go back to Pano 2 VR, and here is that video. Here it is. Cool. Right. Okay. So let's go back to Pano 2 VR, and here it is. Now, we extracted a patch. If I go to the list view, you will see that patch image there. Now, part of this is going to be using an image mask, and I want that image mask to be in exactly the same position. So to make my life easier, what I'm going to do is right button click copy in the list view for that patch. Right button click and paste. So I now have two. All right, because as I say, I'm going to be adding a video, and then on top of that video, I'm going to be adding an image mask. I want them both in exactly the same place. So I've now got two reference points of the same place. Okay, cool. So I now want to add the video as a patch, right? Or rather, say that again. I now want to convert the patch to a video. So with the patch selected, so if you double click, which is quite cool in Pano 2 VR, if you double click in the list view, it pinpoints whichever item that you're double clicking on. And here we've got this convert section, and we can convert this patch to a hotspot, an image, or a video. So I'm going to click convert to a pinned video. Click yes, and I'm going to select the pinned video there. Click, and there it is. Now I'm going to loop it forever, and I'm going to make it start muted, because as we all know, browsers these days will not auto start media with sound. So I'm going to start it muted. I'm going to go to output, because at the moment we don't have one, so I'm going to select HTML5 and create the output. Okay, so let's save the project and output it, and there it is. There's my pinned. It's a bit noisy, so I'm going to turn off the sound. Now you probably don't hear that, but for me in my headphones it's quite noisy, and in the playback of the video you will hear that as well. So I've just muted the sound there. But anyway, we've got the video playing. Now what you'll see here is the difference. Remember what I said earlier about the way browsers treat images and video? They actually use two different color spaces. All right, so pictures tend to be sRGB. Most browsers deal with that. But as far as I know, only Firefox can actually handle the color space of a video. And just to prove that point, I'm going to copy the URL here, and we're going to open this up in Firefox and see the difference. Boom, see, it's gone. Look at that. Now, wouldn't that be great if every single browser, but wouldn't that be great if every single browser did that? Unfortunately, Firefox is the only one that I know does this, but there is a way we can fix this, and that's using, as I said, this image mask. So let's just have another look at here. So we've got this light area all the way around. All right, so the way we're going to fix this is if I minimize Pano 2 VR and go back to Photoshop. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of cheating. And what I'm going to do is I only really need to unlock the background. So I've unlocked it. Photoshop does something funky with the layer here, but don't worry about that. And with it unlocked, I'm going to grab the image mask and drag it onto the patch image and then hide the video. So now you can see the patch image with this mask masking it all around. Now, with the patch selected, all I have to do is Command I on the Mac, and that would be Control I on the PC, and that inverts the mask. All right. So what I've now got is a nice image with a hole in the middle to show the video. So all I need to do now is just go File, Export, Ping, and I'm just going to just underscore and call that mask. And that's done. So I can now close this, go back to Pano 2 VR, boom. And what I'm going to do then is go back to the list view, and here is that other patch. So I'm double clicking that to get to that one, and I'm going to convert this to the image. So pick a file, and here's the ping with the hole, and there it is. Now, interestingly, because Interestingly, what we need here is in the list view, we want the video to be the top element and the patch or the image to be the lower element. Unlike the skins tree, where the higher the element in the tree, the more forward it is, in the list view, it's as you've added them. So we've added the video first. So we've now added the image or the pinned image. So because we've added that last, that's actually come underneath it, but it does mean that's more forward. So that's the only thing you've got to be sort of more mindful of, is that in the list view, the lower the element, the more forward it is. But the mere fact that we add the video first and then we add the patch image should always be the last thing you've done. So it'll always be in the right order. And it doesn't matter when these were two patches, if I'd have selected the bottom one and turned that into a video, and then selected the top one and turned it into the patch image, they would change around because that would have been the last thing I did. All right, I have played with this to make sure that these words are true, but yeah, it does work. So if you add the image as the last thing, then that's fine. Okay, I'm going to go to the output. I'm now going to create the output, and what we should now see is that line disappeared in Safari. There we go. So I'll close that. I'll just mute that. So that's that line gone. You can just see where obviously where I've blended it in. If you, as I say, this is probably the actual color of this panorama, and the video is probably the worst case scenario. Within the greens you can't see anything in the blending. It's really good. It's only with these light horrible colors, but you know, I'd rather show a project that shows the very worst case scenario and showing how good we can actually get it. So it's not bad. All right, so that's that. So that's it blended and it's working. We could do other little things. If I go back to the list view and choose the video, I could select directional sound. So here's our directional sound scheme. Go back to the output. As I say, you're not going to hear this until the playback of the video, but it's all directional and it works lovely. All right, so that's that sort of done. Now what I want to do now is look at fine tuning. All right, now what I mean by that is if we go back to the project folder, if I look at the size of this video, if I get the information from it, you'll see it's 3.1 meg, which in itself isn't bad. This is why try and keep it as small as possible on the loop, because then you know you don't have this massive file size you've got to deal with. And the and the mask image that I'm using, if we have a look at this, that's you know, just over half a meg, or sorry, yeah, half a meg. So you know, that's quite cool. But I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but I tend to use a little application called Handbrake. All right, and this is quite cool. So let's just go to application. Well, actually, it's here, so it's already open. So let's. It's already. Well, I've already got it open. What I've done basically is drag and drop that image in here. I'll do that anyway. So there we go. So there's my new image. Is in here. So this is the video. I'm making sure that I've got web optimized selected. Now, why have I got web optimized selected? Well, with video, sometimes, depending on how it's been encoded, the actual headers for it may not be at the start. So as an example, you may go to you actually may see or click on a video and you'll see its progress bar. Nothing plays until it gets, I don't know, about a third of the way in. And when it calculates there's enough video and the speed and everything else, it can then start to play, and then it does. All right. But if it's web optimized, all the headers are at the front, and that tells the browser that, you know, this is streamable. So basically what it does is it can start the video off quicker. Now, the mere fact that this is a very, very small file size probably isn't going to make that much difference. But, you know, if you're dealing with somebody sitting behind a desk and speaking, it's going to be a 3 or 4 minute video, then this is well worth knowing about. But anyway, so we've got this. I'm just going to change the location of where it's going to put it. So it's going to put it in here. Choose. I'm going to, this is patch video. I'm just going to change its, actually I'll change its file name. I'll do that here, _ HB for Handbrake. All right. The other thing is as well is under the presets, I tend to use Android 720 30 frames a second. That gives you your MPEG-4 file extension. If you use a preset that's, I don't know, for an Apple device, it won't be MPEG-4, it might be MPA or whatever it is, or whatever the file extension that Apple uses. But using the Android one gives you MPEG-4. So that's where it's going to put it. This is going to take a really long time to do. Done, right? And what we should have now is our new video file here. So this is the same one. It's now got HB, but look at this. 417K. Wow. All right, so that's really good. So if we go back to Pano 2 VR, all right, if we go back to the list view and select make sure we've got the video selected, you can now choose this new one that we've built for Handbrake. Here it is. Click open. Would I like to see a preview? Would I like to create a preview image? Yes, I would. Basically, the preview image is if you do open the video and it's not loaded yet, you see this preview images before the video starts. So that's quite good to have. And let's click OK, and there it is. That's the handbrake image or the handbrake video. There's very, very little difference in the quality at all, but it's a fraction of the file size. So yeah, that's well worth doing. All right, I'm going to throw it open. Actually, no, I won't. I'll stop there actually, because what I wanted to do, because I'm just looking at the clock and I've got a bit of time to play with, so I'm going to abuse the fact. I'm going to have a skin, open a skin. I'm going to add a text box, and that text box is going to be my button, or be a button, and I'm going to call it mask. All right, because I want to show you something that you can do, because we've added the video and the pinned image or the mask as pinned elements. They're now media elements. So I'm going to add a text box which I'm going to use as a button. And I'm going to give it the action of mouse click. If we go to media, and I'm going to visibility media, and I'm going to toggle. So we've got mouse click, media, the visibility of the media, and we're going to toggle it. All right. And the duration time, well, let's just do half a second so it slightly fades in and out rather than just hides and shows. And the target is going to be the media element 2, because that's the patch image. All right. Now I could have, if I'd have chose element 01, then I could have hide and showed the video. But I just want to hide and show the patch image or my image mask to show you. So if I click OK, close, it's going to ask me to save this. So I'm going to save it to desktop, and in the folder, let's just call it skin. I know I've done this pretty quick, but yeah, this is all basic saving stuff. So I'm saving the skin to the same project folder. Let's output this. There is the video. If I click this to stay on, right, so there's the video. If I click the mask, boom, that's now that mask hidden. Click it again, that's the mask back in. So that's why we've done that extra step. Now if I was to open this project in Firefox, then clicking that button will actually do click, click, click. It does nothing, because obviously the color space for the video and the image is dealt with by the browser. In Safari and Chrome it's not, so therefore we are using this image, or this mask image. There you go. I think I've talked to death about this. I hope you guys find this useful. So I'm just going to throw it open one more time to Karen. Do we have any questions?
Right now we don't have any questions. Oh, yes, we have a question.
Oh, I thought I was going to have early night then.
So Arnold, who has lots of ideas today, as he had said earlier, he is wondering, okay, so Arnold, your question kind of is related to this, but is not the same. He's wondering if okay, sorry, I'm just reading I'm wondering if we can take care of this. What he's trying to do is pin a video, which is different than embedding the video, and trying to get it super close to the panorama, and to have it stick in there. So I think for that, maybe you're not using pinned video.
Well, in actual fact, we are. This is the fact. We are actually using a pinned video. Except what we're doing is we're extracting a patch first, so we can accurately put it back. That's the difference. I could have titled this, pinned videos, and shown this exact same thing. We're calling it embedding video because that's what we're actually physically doing, embedding a video into a panorama. But a pinned video would be the sort of thing you'd do on a TV screen in a room or something. So the accuracy there doesn't have to be pixel perfect. Where something like this, it does. Therefore, we're using helpers like the patch to do that. But if you're just talking about grabbing a video, pinning it into Pano 2 VR. Yeah, you can line it up. It'll, how accurately you're going to do that, because you can adjust, you can unlock it and then adjust all of the positioning here. Now, obviously, I'm going to keep that locked because I do not want to move this at all. But, if you're just throwing in a pinned image, you will have all this position settings. So your X and Y and Z rotation and all that sort of stuff. And you can probably get it close, but it's going to be a lot of, fiddling about and making adjustments and having a look at the export. But then, Pano 2 VR renders the output so quickly that it probably won't be that bad anyway. But there you go. So, yeah.
Yeah, right. That was what I was getting at. That if you have the controls there for pin video, and what I was saying is that maybe Arnold, you're not using pinned video. I just there's so many different ways to bring in video into Pano 2 VR that we have to kind of be clear on what video.
Sorry, did I just go off in a mega tangent then? Sorry.
No, I think what you did was great, because you showed the settings that are there to help you really get that pinned video perfect. Like if you want to really align that into a TV screen or something, those settings there will help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and also Arnold is asking if you can have YouTube videos, and yes, you can, and that is another video or another webinar, or check our documentation. There's lots on that.
Yeah, with pinned video, yeah, I spoke. I mean, obviously we can bring in YouTube and Vimeo videos via the video element in the skin, so have a pop-up. But when we're talking about pinned videos, I spoke to Thomas about this earlier actually, and he was saying, because obviously we can put in a file path here, and I think with Vimeo with a paid account, you can actually sort of set the size that you want and get it close, but then you can change the file path to the URL. But as far as I'm aware, this only works with Vimeo and a paid account. Because it needs to have all this funky stuff that YouTube doesn't have, or what's free. But in the past, to get round this, what we've done is just add a text box, use an iframe in the text box, and then we add the text box to a hotspot, and then we 3D distort the hotspot onto the panorama, so it looks like it's a pinned video, but it's actually a 3D distorted hotspot with a text box. That works just as well and cheaper. So, yeah.
Okay. I think, I think that's it. Oh, I see a question from Luca in the chat here. He says, I have a big difficulty to embed a wide video that is find place in big part of the picture. I think he's trying. So I think what Luca is trying to say is, if the video is really big and takes up a big part of the panorama. Is that what you're saying, Luca? You're having a hard time?
I think he's talking about pinned video rather than embedded, right? I've got a funny feeling that's the case.
You're usually right about these things. Okay.
Because I know, because one of the things that we had to look at was when you're, like with hotspots, if you've got shed loads of hotspots, and I say shed loads, sorry, that's an English slang. If you've got lots of hotspots in a panoramic image, that's a lot of resources. So what we do is, as the panorama rotates, when the hotspot goes off view, it goes off so many degrees, and then we hide it. We actually get rid of it because it doesn't have to be there. It doesn't have to take up resources because it's no longer in view. Now, if you've got pinned elements to that, like I don't know, a pinned video, or like what we said earlier, by using a 3D distorted text box to show a YouTube video, if that's massive and of course it's being pinned by a hotspot. As that rotates, when the hotspot gets to its certain degrees out of view and disappears, then anything it's pinned to will also vanish as well. So you can get into a situation, when I had it, where a guy pinned a YouTube video in a cinema. All right, so you can imagine you've got a row of seats in front of you, cinema screen, and it's a pinned YouTube video using a text box and a point hotspot. As you rotated that around, the video disappeared just before the panorama would have moved it out of view. The actual thing we needed to do there was just reduce that size of that text box so it didn't disappear too quickly. But, you know, this is the, you know, all I can say is, you know, obviously Pano 2 VR is very quick, it's very good, it's very resource forgiving on small phones and things like that. It doesn't eat up too much power, and so there are these caveats. But, you know, other than that, I mean, I can't think of anything else why that would be a problem other than what I've just described with the hotspots, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think I was just asking Thomas, and you know, he's yeah, he's saying, you know, if the field of view is really wide, you know, the video is really big, then maybe you get some weird things going on. So yeah. And I think that's it for the questions.
Right, okay. I can't think of anything else that I can throw at you guys for this. As I say, perhaps just a quick back on the workflow. So, you know, because we did cover quite a few things and we've done it relatively slowly. I can actually sit down, this particular project, I can sit down and bang this out in under about 8 minutes, under 10 minutes, and it's done and it looks pretty good. Obviously, we've taken a long time to do it today because of slowing down and talking about things. The biggest task is really the blending. As I say, sometimes you can do it and you just hit that right slider and it's perfect. Sometimes you'll hit a wrong slider and it's just like, oh, can't get it in. But generally speaking, that's down to your own skill set. I'm not a massive, you know, Photoshop user. I've practiced it a few times and now I've sort of got it down to a T. I know what I'm doing with it. So it is just a case of it's a knack. It isn't a skill set, I would say. It's a knack of doing it. But yeah, you know, I've done a few things. And yeah, I'd like to see a lot of examples from customers. I don't really see too many pinned video examples. We actually do have a nice one in our examples on our own website of the blacksmith. That was really cool. But it's little things like clocks in the background, and just, you know, I've seen one from a barber's shop and it was the whirly barber's sign going around in circles. That was fantastic. And they just had that.
A good point to bring up. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go on.
Because it kind of ties into Luca's question. You know, when embedding video, it's good to focus on the little bits.
Absolutely.
You know, if you have a huge piece of video that you want to integrate into your still image, then you're probably better off just using 360 video. And you know, and just to think of ideas, you know, it doesn't just have to be, like what you say, you know, just somebody talking, but yeah, like the little barber thing going around, like you said, for
you know, even a clock in the background, yeah,
yeah, you know, like little things that are easy to manage. And as we've been chatting, Simon has a question, and oh, that's an interesting question. Simon says, how did you get the idea of integrating part of a video within the panorama? Was it from a client need? Yeah.
That's actually a good question, actually. I don't know the origins of this, other than, you know, if you've only got a small part of because that's the thing with the 360 video. If you want it high quality, it's huge, massive bandwidths. Certainly mobile phones are not going to display it. They just can't handle it. Where, I mean, with this project, the problem I had was Thomas's video was a much higher resolution than the 360 image itself. So the masking that we did is actually masking a bit of that as well, because if you didn't have the mask, you would see such a resolution difference, especially if I click off this, especially in the area of this building. This area here, it's a little bit fuzzy from the panorama, but in the video it is crystal sharp. So we needed to mask that out because it just looked odd. You saw a line because of the difference in resolution. But yeah, so you can see, we've got a high resolution video. I know it doesn't look like it probably from your screens, but we've got a high resolution video. We could have had a high resolution panorama, but yet using multi-res and things like that, it would have still been visible on a lot more devices than just a single high resolution 360 video. But Karen is absolutely dead right in what she's saying, is if you've got a lot of stuff going on, go with the 360 video. For me, this is just perhaps a house and someone walking past a window, or a car driving past, or a van with a big advert on, going past, advertising the property as it drives past the window. It only has to be a small space, but then that drives past, and that the actual visual effect of that would be quite good. So yeah, it's the little things, it's the clock ticking, it's the barber sign whizzing around, it's those little things, and that's where Karen is absolutely spot on. So this is a really good project for that.
And part of the maybe the history of adding bits of video into the image is that I don't think we can take the credit of getting that idea. There some of you may have heard of Ada Holben, and I think he was doing something like that a long time ago. Another guy, Jim Waters, was working with Pano 2 VR and kind of fiddled around and got it working at some point in Pano 2 VR. And there's another guy, and Antonio Garcia Serrera. He developed a really cool way of doing 360 video without 360 video, which kind of is kind of like the same idea, where if you don't have a 360 video camera or a rig, you can get really nice high quality video by using the camera that you have with the fisheye lens, by embedding that video within the panorama. So it's not a, it's something that's been around for a while, and it's a way to nowadays it's probably more of a way to add interest cheaply, or if you don't have a 360 video rig, it's a way to integrate video or make a video without that rig, and without doing all the extra editing. But things have changed nowadays, so yeah.
Absolutely. Back in the Panateur Pro days when that was about, this would have been a €200 plugin. We're doing it free now with Photoshop. I suppose a few of you guys are ex Panateur Pro users, and you would have known that as Live Pano, I do believe. I know 3D Vista calls Live Pano something completely different, but anyway, Panateur Pro, that was it was basically doing this. But I think they used their Stitcher as well, hence why it was a paid plugin. But just using Photoshop, Pano 2 VR, you can do it no problem, or any photo editor that can handle layers, video, and whatnot. And yeah, it's just a process. I think the very first processes were using, if I remember rightly, was it PT GUI? You were taking frames from PT GUI and distorting and using, it seemed to be a bit of a process. And for a while, that was the way to do it. I remember seeing it in one of the IVRPA meetings, someone demonstrating using PT GUI, like the Stitcher, to take the frames and distorting the frames and then putting the frames back and creating a video, so the video then got distorted back to the panorama. But of course, nowadays with Photoshop, much easier, so yeah, all good. Anyway, I've got Tom's typing on the teletype. So, he said, was me at Panotour's meeting. All right. So, yeah.
Which Panatools meeting?
Yeah. I would imagine the Vienna one. Was that Paris? Oh, I wasn't about. Oh, yes, it was. Yeah, no, Paris.
You were there.
I was there. I think my first one was, where was it? Portsmouth, wasn't it? Panatours? Yeah. Anyway, moving on. we digress. Sorry, peoples. But yeah, it's, yeah, so it was Thomas. All right. I stand corrected. I'm probably going to get a good roasting later for that. You should know that. But anyway.
Yeah,
anyway, I think we're done. Well, I'm done anyway. I don't. Has the questions, Karen? We got any more, or we good? Or
no, I think we're good. Yeah, people are saying thank you. Yeah, cool. So, yeah, thanks a lot, and we will see you later. Someone was asking about the video or posting the, Antonio's name. Yeah, you can email us. I'll send that to you. I can't find it right now. But yeah. All right. Have a wonderful evening or day, morning, wherever you're at. And thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. I just want to quickly touch base on what we're doing next week. We're probably going to be looking at, well, I say probably, there's no probably about it really, we have thought about it. It is going to be dealing with large projects, so that's gigapixel or multiple nodes, and we're talking in the hundreds of node projects, so that's what we're going to be looking at next week. Cool. Sorry, Karen,
no, that's cool. I didn't know that. That's great.
Well, I was going to say, sorry, I didn't, it was just something because I came on earlier to Thomas and went, well, we've done this one, so what we're doing next week, and I think we both looked at each other and was like, don't know. So, but this is something that's actually cropped up quite a few times. It's can Pano 2 VR deal with lots of images? Yes, it can. It can deal with shed loads. So there's another little English bit of shed loads means a lot. Sorry, but yeah, it's it can handle a lot. But anyway, I'm going to sign off and say thank you to everybody for watching and taking part today. Much appreciate it. Makes my job that little bit more exciting. So thank you, everybody, and see you next week. Bye.